So what we're going to be looking at today is business. And a lot of y'all have interactions with business because you work for businesses, right? Can y'all tell me some of the things that your business cannot do to you? Overwork you. So what is overwork? What can't they work you beyond? 8 hours. Or what else? 40 hours a week. What are some minimum standards that your business has to give you? Standard pay. So what is the standard pay right now? $7.25. Are there any other things that your business is required by law to do?
A safe environment.
A safe environment, right? They have to be OSHA compliant. Right? Many of you in CTE classes have your OSHA stuff, right? And you know, like, there's certain things, I don't know, I think a good majority of y'all work, right? They have to provide a safe environment, okay? Do they have to give you any benefits? Some do. Health benefits, right? Okay? So, if you get hurt on the job, do they have to do something for you, your job? Hey, why? If you get hurt at your work, why do they have to do something for you?
Because you were under their care.
You were under their care. And so all of those things that you think of today, like I think about, like, I have a job right now, there's a standard pay, okay? There is, if I get hurt, they give me benefits, all this other stuff. I want you to think in this time period of the Gilded Age, 1900, do you think those things existed? No. It is what is going on in this time period of big business, them looking out for themselves, is what's going to lead to why we have things today. It is what goes wrong here, which will set the standards for which we'll get to today, which we'll actually get into the next unit. Because people are going to look at these guys that own these big businesses, which you know, who are some of these guys who own these big businesses? Rockefeller, Carnegie, right? We're going to look at them and their beliefs. We're going to review a little bit on this backside. Remember how we did those philosophies of industrialists? Mm-hmm. We're going to review again. And so on the backside of your notes, because I told you that this page is written backwards, right? We're just looking at the backside. We're going to go over some of these beliefs because you will definitely see these on your test. One of the first ones is laissez-faire. And all I want you to write is little government intervention. Just imagine if you were to have that today with your parents. Are y'all's parents laissez-faire? Little intervention. Prentice is saying no. My parents are all up in my business.
Yeah.
Okay? They're all... Christian, you could agree with that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. She's not up in your stuff, about your grades?
No. Oh, yeah.
Oh, she is. There is intervention. So how many of y'all are looking towards college? You're like, finally, my parents will be laissez-faire. I will be far away from them that they can't be up in my business. You know, some of you are like, my mom will be there. Like, she will be on my shoulder. She is going to be sleeping in the bed next to me. She will never be laissez-faire in my life. Okay? Many people are looking forward towards college because there is a little bit of laissez-faire. I want you to think about school today. When you came in, was there little government intervention? No. What did the school, the moment you walked in that door, what was the intervention they did? IDs? Check your what?
Our bags.
Apparently checked your bags. They looked at your clothing, right? So there is regulation, right? Our school is not laissez-faire. I used to teach at a school that was very laissez-faire. We didn't have IDs. We didn't have dress code. Okay? That was very laissez-faire. However, here in Waxahachie, are we laissez-faire? So when there is laissez-faire, is there any rules? So do people get to do as they please? And this is why you're looking forward to college. We're going to see individuals, because of laissez-faire, get to follow their own self-interest. And when business do this, they're looking for those profits, and it will benefit society. We had done this quote before. How do y'all feel about laissez-faire? How many of y'all will raise your kids laissez-faire? No? Y'all are going to intervene, right? Okay, but y'all don't want intervention. So y'all get laissez-faire? Let's move to the next one. Social Darwinism. All I want you to write is survival of the fittest. And we read this document before break, and a lot of y'all were like, oh my gosh, the rich should be rewarded. The most capable should be rewarded. And then y'all like aghast on the last part where it says those who are weak and handicapped demand more than they contribute, and they should not be supported but die a natural death. And y'all went, how dare they say that, right? Okay, some of y'all really believe this, right? We said this is like GPA, right? GPA is survival of the fittest. The best and the brightest are at the top, the least capable are at the bottom. They also talked about charity and handouts being destructive. Okay, we looked at this image. Who is this guy right here? Rockefeller. What is this supposed to represent?
His
Oil company, but it's a rose, right? Do roses in nature naturally exist on their own? No, so what has he done to the bush?
cut off all
He sheared it with his little shears, right? That's his competitors. Is he following social Darwinism? He's a strong believer in it, right? But does he also believe in laissez-faire? So Rockefeller really endorses these two ideas. Now we're going to look at the other idea of gospel of wealth. Gospel of wealth really deals with Andrew Carnegie. And I told you Carnegie is always going to be in a kilt, right? Okay, because he's Scottish. I don't think all Scottish people walk around in kilts, but in political cartoons they will convey him like that. Okay, but what we're going to look at is gospel of wealth. He says it is the duty of those with wealth. This is what we're going to write. To help those who want to improve their lot in life. It is the duty of those with wealth to help bring services or to improve the lot of those who want to improve their life. So we've seen this political cartoon. And Carnegie, what is he giving money for?
library.
Libraries. Does a library assist everyone? No, it only assists those who do what? Help themselves by doing what in the library? Sleeping?
No.
Working by reading what? Books. And so Carnegie only wants to help those who want to help themselves. What, do we have a modern day example of people giving money to help others who want to help themselves? Scholarships, right? So Carnegie is helping the community, but only those, right, who want to help themselves. And so at this time period of the 1900s, libraries become very popular, okay? And up in the Northeast, I know we don't have any Carnegie libraries here, but Carnegie libraries take hold in the Northeast. We get the Sims Library at this time, okay? So I want us to look at this next list. This is measuring the richest people's wealth. And I want you to tell me, why is there a huge gap between Rockefeller and Carnegie? Why is there a huge gap?
Because Rockefeller owns 90% of the
He owns the oil industry 95%, but think about their philosophies. Why does Rockefeller have so much more? He doesn't believe in giving to charities, right? He believes in survival of the fittest. So he has a lot of money. What did Carnegie say that he should do with this money? Help those who want to help themselves. So did he spend a lot of his money? Okay, I don't want you to always think that Carnegie was a good guy. Because we look at Gospel of Wealth and we're like, oh man, he's a philanthropist. He's giving his money. Carnegie, for a long time, we're going to see a strike that happens at his plant. For a long time, he believed in social Darwinism and laissez-faire. It isn't until he sold his steel mill that he starts adding to the community. He will sell his steel mill to J.P. Morgan. So for most of his career, he really believed in laissez-faire and social Darwinism. It isn't until after that he endorses that. But do y'all see why there's that huge gap in wealth? Now I want you to look at this guy named Bill Gates. And I want you to tell me, who is Bill Gates more like? Is he more like Rockefeller or is he more like Carnegie?
Carnegie.
Okay, why do y'all say he's more like Carnegie?
He has the Well Project. He spends all his money helping improve the lives of third world countries.
Oh yeah, he goes into Africa. There's the well projects, not wells. He's not going out and saving
Yes,
the whales. He
he's-
probably is doing that somehow, some way. Okay, What else do y'all know that he's doing with his money? Huh? He's investing, but he's investing back into schools. There's like the Gates and Melania Scholarship Fund. He also has a scholarship fund for kids who are going to college for books. And so is he spending his money for people who want to do good for themselves? Yes. Is he at all like Rockefeller? Rockefeller will donate. He will donate to University of Chicago, but he will pale in comparison to Carnegie. And there's some other guys. We talked about Vanderbilt and we talked about Morgan. Now what we're going to look at is how did they amass this much? Because this is way more money than men today. And a lot of it stems that the way these guys did their stuff, there was no rules. Because of them, the rules will come out. So I'm going to start to talk about their tactics. Do y'all know what a tactic is? A plan, a method, right? And we're going to look at their methods, which is on the next part. The first one, and I'm going to have to turn off the lights because y'all are immediately drawn to this. Let's talk about this picture. Okay, what do y'all see?
They kind of look like money bags.
Okay, they look like money bags. Do y'all see the little S? Hey, I don't know if y'all realize this, but if I get to teach econ next year, like every money symbol is just a letter with 2 lines through it. Okay. Huh? This is not Congress. This is the Senate. Okay, there's a couple of things here you cannot see because it's kind of blurry. This says the people's entrance, and it says closed. Wait, should the Senate be able to listen to the people? Yes. But this is prior to the 17th Amendment. The 17th Amendment says the senators will be chosen by the people. But that's their whole purpose, is to serve the people. Okay, so we now know we're in the Senate, so these guys down here are what? Senators. Okay, so then now let's look at this. What did y'all say these guys were? They're rich guys that look like money bags, right? Okay, so do y'all see them looking like money bags now? Okay, there's a couple of things. I'm going to have to explain a word so you could get what is going on in this image. Okay, this word trust. I'm going to make you write something down, and then I'm going to explain what a trust is, and then we're going to come back and finish this image. So a trust is basically a monopoly, but not like when one person owns it all. It is when several small businesses form to create a bigger business so they could set higher prices and standardize production. Many of y'all know of Imperial Sugar, right? Y'all heard that name before? Mm-hmm. Okay. Imperial Sugar is this type of trust. What Imperial Sugar was, and I'm going to make y'all all sugar farmers. Okay? Just imagine we're all sugar farmers and we're all in the same state. Do we like each other? Why not? Well,
We're competing.
and so if we're competing against each other, what happens to price? It goes down. So are we getting cutthroat with each other?
Yes.
We don't like each other. But someone realizes that if we create a monopoly, okay, so I need Farmer Belle, Farmer Misty, Farmer Mallory. They decide, hey, let's form a company.
Okay.
If we come together and form this company called Imperial Sugar, we can control the sugar industry. And then we have a bigger say. And then people start to realize people start buying sugar from them. So then Preston wants to join. Farmer Preston comes in. And they start to realize we start getting more money. So then Farmer Joseph comes in. And then now do y'all all want to join in because now this company is now known. And so all of a sudden, all these farmers, the rest of you farmer sugar people, join. But now that we're not competing against each other, we get to set the same price. Is that good? Because we all are making what now?
Money.
Money. We're all making profit. And this is exactly what Imperial Sugar is. This is exactly what Standard Oil was. And y'all know who owned Standard Oil. Who was it? Rockefeller. Y'all said he owned 95% of the industry. Yes, he did. But the way he did it was through a trust. He was the largest owner of the trust, right? But there was other people. And were they encouraged to join his trust? Because if they didn't join his trust, that means what were they doing against him? They were losing business. They were competing against him. And if they joined them, would they profit? And that is exactly what a trust is. It is not one person owning it, but it's several people. And when several people come together and they decide that we will not compete against each other, does that benefit them? Does it benefit us as consumers? No, because we're forced to pay what? A higher price. The other thing it does, it standardizes the production. Y'all know Rockefeller did Standard Oil, but what type of oil did he work in at originally? Do you remember? The kerosene, which is what? Lamps. What makes that obsolete? The light bulb. So eventually what he will do in kerosene is he's going to standardize the production because y'all know when oil comes out of the ground it's dark, right? So to get kerosene you have to take all of the impurities out, all the darkness out of the oil and make it clear. And so he's going to set the production standards. And that's one of the cool things about trust is that they standardize the production of an item. So now let's go back to this. Do these things represent, these money bags represent one person? Do they represent one person? What do they represent now? A trust, which is a what? A group of people. And now that they've come together, we know what have they done to price. They set it high. And so now is this trust powerful? Because they have a higher price. So now do you understand why the bags are so big? So these guys, are they just sitting here to watch them? What are they doing? It says steel beam trust, copper trust, Standard Oil. What are they trying to do here? Intimidate them? Maybe bribe them? To what? Make laws that benefit them. Doesn't this happen today with business in our Congress? That they pay lobbyists to go out there to influence our senators and our congressmen, right? And this stems from the Gilded Age. Okay? So do y'all get what's going on in this image? So now let's look at our next image. This one is a pool. This one is a pool. And let me give you an example of a pool that's a modern day example so y'all can understand what's going on. Hey, I'm make some of y'all drug dealers. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, so let's just, okay, I just made y'all sugar farmers, now I'm making you drug dealers. Okay, but, okay, so if drug dealers compete against each other, what should happen to price? It goes down. All of y'all are drug dealers. We're all selling a Waxahachie. We're all competing against each other. It would drive price down. Would y'all like that? Prices going down? No. And so then some of you would get vicious over there. Joseph, he's like, start taking out people. But if he starts taking out people, what happens to his sale of his item? It goes down. So can we have can we have these wars between each other? No. And so what happens is y'all collectively come together and y'all are going to create a pool. And what that is, yes, y'all are all setting the same thing, but when y'all compete against each other, what happens to price? It goes down. And so what y'all agree to do is to divide up the market. So Mallory, where do you live by? Midlothian. She's going to take over there at the Midlothian contingency. Misty, where do you live by?
I live near Finley.
She's going to take over there by Finley. Caroline, where do you live by? She's going to take over here by Howard. Where do you live? By Marvin. Okay, where do you live? By Coleman. Okay, where do you live?
Middle school.
Oak. You're living by Oak.
No, oh, I thought we were just choosing.
No, I'm not asking you. Where do you live by?
Oh, I live by the school that's by the QT. Is that, what is it again?
Shackelford. Okay, where do you live by? Huh? Dunaway, where do you live?
By Howard.
By Howard. Okay, go.
Y'all got
Take south side of Howard, take north side of Howard. It's a big area, okay? Okay, where do you live by?
I live by Shackelford too.
Okay, but take closer to the Becky Lane, okay? So look at this. I just started to divide y'all up and give y'all areas, right? Now, if I give each one, I'm sorry that I didn't give the rest of you areas because I know you're aspiring, okay? But now, okay, just take a place in Waxahachie that hasn't been said. Okay, now that I divide you up into areas, what have I eliminated? Competition. And then we're going to set a set price. So now that we don't have competition and we can set price high, are y'all going to profit? And then Joseph doesn't have to go out and do what? Okay, and then we also realize that we're not going to do 2-for-1s or give any specials, because then is that going to cause chaos? So do y'all get what a pull is?
Yes.
It is basically all of these smaller businesses coming together, dividing up an area to set price high so we don't have what? So this is exactly what the railroad did. They realized if we had 2 railroads going through a city, what would that do to price? Lower it, and is that going to be beneficial?
No.
So if you look at our thing, and we'll talk about Minnesota and Iowa, do you see that there's only one railroad in the north? There's only one railroad that runs through the middle. There's 2 railroads that run through the south. One takes a northern track, and one takes a southern track. Think about Waxahachie today. How many railroads do we have coming through Waxahachie? 2. One that goes east to west and one that goes north to south. Why didn't they create another one? So they don't compete, because if they compete, what happens to price? Okay, okay, so now let me talk about the anomaly of Iowa and Minnesota. Oh, this is really bad, because what is there a lot of? Railroads, and there's a lot of railroads, so we're having a lot of what? Competition, so what happens to price? Okay, and so this is what the railroads learned. It is very expensive to build a railroad. So the railroads are going to create a pool. It's when several businesses divide up an area and fix prices. By fixing prices, do we have competition? No, we divide up the areas. And again, by dividing up the territories, the businesses don't have to compete, allowing them to gain more profit. This happens today with right? The cop just walked by, so I was like, gosh, getting in trouble.
They heard you.
They heard me. Okay, so, but y'all think about, like, in Central America, y'all know El Chapo was the big guy there, right? But even then, he had to divide up his territory so he didn't have issues with people. Hey, you no longer aspire to be drug dealers, please. Okay? Don't go tell your parents today that I secretly. Oh yeah.
If we all do that.
Okay, so eventually I'm going to come back and talk about the railroads being created on the front side of our notes. But I'm going to keep on going through methods of power. The other one is a rebate, and I know we want to look at this image. Let me explain what a rebate is first. A rebate is given to preferred users. So do you think small farmers or big businesses? Big businesses. And it discounts the price. I need to get a new marker. It discounts the price for an item for guaranteed business. So an example of this is Rockefeller. Rockefeller, what is he going to be transporting on the railroad? Oil, right? He just can't carry that oil everywhere. And so people like Vanderbilt went to him and saying, look, if you use 80 carts of mine every single day, I will discount that cart from $3.25 to 80 cents. Does Rockefeller want to take that? Yes, because he's going to save on transportation. That is a rebate. They're discounting that price for him. And we're going to see Rockefeller got lower rates to use the railroad, but he had to guarantee those shipments. He had to guarantee those shipments, and he got to dominate the industry, because he had that lower transportation cost. So now let's look at the image. So do y'all see what this says on the neck? Standard, what is this in reference to? Standard Oil. So this guy right here is what? Rockefeller. And it's it looks like a what? Snake, right? Because really, does he control the railroad now? He gets preferential treatment. But in the end of the day, do you think Rockefeller's going to be happy that every single day he has to set a set amount of stuff on the railroad? He's tied to that deal. And so what's going to happen is Rockefeller's going to figure out in his head, how do I get around not using the railroad? How can I get my oil to the refinery by not putting it on the railroad? And I want you to look at what he's fighting right here. Tidewater Pipeline. Rockefeller gets the idea that he does not have to be dependent on the railroad if he develops a system to be able to carry the oil from the oil field to the refinery. And he creates pipelines. You know what pipelines are? Yes, a lot of us seen that we've had pipeline burst in Alaska, pipeline burst through Indian Territory. But these pipelines, he's going to invest in these pipelines to be able to carry the oil from the oil field to the refinery, and thus he doesn't have to be dependent on who? The railroads. Right? But the railroads, they give him a really good deal. So could anybody compete with him if he had such low cost of transportation? And that's one reason why he controlled 95% of the industry. The next one is a holding company. And we're going to look at holding companies in a second. It is a business. Oh gosh. Now it is just like my life. It is a business that owns enough stock of another company to control it. To control the policies and to control the management. I guess you had to write the whole thing, but let me, like, for my life, find a marker that works. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
It is. So my example is Disney. Can y'all tell me other companies? Disney is Disney itself, right? They created that. But there's other companies Disney bought that they did not create, but they just bought it and they own enough stocks of that company to be able to control what that company does. ABC, Lucasfilms,
20th Century Fox.
Fox, ESPN, yes, Marvel,
Star Wars is in Lucasfilm,
Pixar.
Yes.
Okay, any of y'all get Disney Plus over break? Okay, what were the other things that were offered in Disney Plus?
Oh,
National Geographic,
The Simpsons.
okay,
It was a Disney
Hulu. Hulu, and what else? And you'll have to realize why that came in a package. Because Disney owns those, well, they didn't create those companies, but they know enough, they, look at this, they own enough of the stock of that company to control their policies. Okay? So I'm going to show you an image in a second of things that are called holding companies. I'm going to show you Disney first, and I'm going to show you some other companies that y'all probably know of. Okay, so this is the Disney image. So y'all said that they own Marvel. They own Marvel Studios. Y'all said they own 20th Century Fox. Okay, they also own Lucasfilms. They also own their Disney stuff. Y'all said ABC, History Channel. They own ESPN. Okay, they own Hulu. There's a lot of other TV stations they own. Did they create those?
No.
They just bought enough what? Stock. Okay. These are other companies you probably know of. Like Kraft. Kraft bought out other companies, but they only bought enough shares to be able to control what is going on in that company. PepsiCo, yes. Actually, I want to update this because Dr. Pepper has been bought by Keurig. You know those little K-cups? And yeah, they've been bought by them. Keurig sample, and Dr. Pepper has been bought by them. And it's like another like conglomerate. They just bought enough stocks of Dr. Pepper to be able to control what Dr. Pepper does. But you're looking at these are major companies that you didn't think about them being created by somebody else but being bought out, so that this major company, like if you go into the stores, there's actually probably like 10 or 15 companies that control that whole store. You looking at this is nearly everything you could possibly put in your cart. Okay, I know y'all are looking at this and just like, wow, like, but I'm gonna move on. Yeah. Procter and Gamble. Like I promise you, go to most of your stuff, you can flip back. Like basically, these are the ones that you could go, anything in your laundry room or in your restroom is from these people. Okay, that's all food on that side. So I just try to use stuff that y'all probably knew.
Yeah, there's like all
Carl's
the
Jr.
dumb
takes
stuff.
their own.
Okay.
I'm not kidding.
Procter and Gamble has
Carl's Jr.
Pringles.
snack.
They
But the rest
really
is not
clean
healthy.
this stuff.
Yeah.
This YouTube should
That's-
be Carl's Jr.
Oh, that's funny. Do you know how
It's like
much?
detergent and chips.
Okay,
No.
this next one, we talked about this before break. Okay, everybody gets obsessed with this image. Okay, do y'all see, it says Credit Mobilier. We talked about this before break, about that scandal with the railroad, that the railroad company said, oh, it's gonna be like 94 million to build the railroad, but it only cost 50 million. And they took the highest bid, because what were they doing with the money? They were pocketing it. And this is what it's talking about. All of these people, they look very shameful because they've been taking that cake, right? But actually all that money was, whose money? It was taxpayer money. And so the scandal is interlocking directories. What it is, you have to put it next to holding companies. It is when the owners of one company are also deal with their other company and they profit. It's right next to holding companies. This is the whole definition you have to write down. And we talked about this. Remember I made a fictitious example with Dr. Glenn? That Dr. Glenn was the superintendent, but he was also in charge of Gallagher Construction, and they took the highest bid. It's on the backside of our notes. This is highly illegal today, okay? This is illegal today. So just like, for example, I'm gonna make up a fictitious thing. Mr. Armstrong, he's the band director, right? And he decides that he is gonna buy uniforms from Armstrong United. Would he benefit? Would he benefit from using his own company? Yes. And you cannot do that today. This is right next to holding companies on the backside. So I gave y'all this example last semester. Union Pacific was a management company. They were hired to build the Transcontinental Railroad. They created their own company called the Credit Mobilier to be the construction company to build it, and they charged them high rates. And in those high rates, they were paid by the federal government, but the federal government got the money from who? Taxpayers. And so many politicians were paid in bribes, and so this is why they look very shameful, these politicians here. Because when it comes out to fruition, we're gonna see that we paid 94 million, and it only cost 50 million. So how much did that company pocket? 44 million of the taxpayer money. Okay, our next one is something called vertical combinations or integration. I don't know what it's called on your notes. But a vertical integration, many of y'all know of a company called Exxon, right? What does Exxon deal with? Gas. Okay, so do y'all know where the Exxon station is here, right? Okay, so Exxon owns the gas stations, but then they also own the trucks. Then they also own the refinery. They own the pipeline, and they own the oil fields. So they own every single step in the process to make what? Oil. Do they have to pay any middlemen? No. So that is what vertical integration is owning every step in a process to make one item. The guy who did this in the Gilded Age, so you're going to have to write this definition right here. The guy who did this was Carnegie. Carnegie, we know he does steel, but he owned the iron mine. He owned the limestone quarry, the coal mine, the shipping facilities, the steel mill, and then the company. So he owned every single step in the process to make what? Steel. Okay. Eventually, Rockefeller would try to do the same thing. I don't know how many of you have ever been down to the stockyards, but there's two companies down there that were meat companies called Swift and Armour, and they own every single step to slaughter cattle. They own the cattle, the refrigerated carts, the warehouse, the meat packing plants, the delivery wagons to be able to deliver the food. Today, do we see many companies like this that own every single step in the process to make one item? No. Exxon is probably the finite example I could give you. Okay. The next one is horizontal. Horizontal is when one company produces the same product with different companies. An example is Yum Brands. I don't know if y'all have ever been like on the highway and like you're like, why is Long John Silver's next to A&W? Or why is there a Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, Wing Street? Because this company, Yum Brands, owns all of these businesses so they can put it in one facility. So another company you may know is of Gap. You know that they have two other companies? Old Navy and Banana Republic. Okay? So it's when you're in one industry. And this is what Rockefeller did. He started buying out, and eventually when they break up Rockefeller's oil industry, he's just going to create different names for all the oil places he's going to create. So we got this definition, right? Did y'all ever wonder why A&W and Long John Silver's were right next to each other?
No, yeah, cause like.
They don't go together, but it's because it's in the same company called Yum Brands. Okay, so we just finished the back side. We're gonna flip to the front side. A lot of our stuff on the front side is written down. But in order for industries to take off, we really needed the building of the railroad. And remember, during the causes of the Civil War, this was a great debate between the North and the South. Eventually, when the Civil War occurs, the government will decide on the northern track. But transportation was key for our market economy. Our businesses needed to get the raw resources, and they needed to be able to send out their finished product. So with the construction of the railroad, it was going to be very expensive. No railroad company wanted to build a railroad that went from a city to nowhere to nowhere to nowhere to the desert to California. That was too expensive because you had to buy all the land. And so in order for this to happen, the government is going to give land grants. They're going to give the railroad the land. But I know y'all are looking at this checkerboard fashion, right? They give them the land in the middle. They're like, okay, there's that area for you to construct. But then they also give them more land. The government is going to take the orange land. And they said the green land is to the business. So that was another way that they paid them. They gave them land. So I want you to think of downtown Waxahachie. Okay? I want us to think of the courthouse. Do y'all realize the courthouse is right here in the orange, right? But do businesses surround it? Do you understand why it's built that way? And then if you go down to the courthouse, do y'all know there's places to pay your taxes? Why is it located a whole block over? Do you understand? Because that's government land. Okay, and then you go to, here's the downtown, our building downtown, right? And now you realize that you have to go, there's, do y'all know where the dance studio is, right? And then there's courthouses right behind there. And then the jail, do you understand why there's all gaps in it now? Because the checkerboard pattern is going to set down how those government facilities are sprawled out. And then do y'all now see why there's population of businesses in between that? It's because of this checkerboard fashion. Okay? Do y'all like visually see downtown and now you get it? Why the buildings, all the government buildings are not together? Okay. So we're going to see that the land grants will give the railroad company collateral so they could go to the banks to be able to fund the railroad. So we're going to see by 1869, the Transcontinental Railroad, which is going to consist of this middle ground one, is going to be complete. By 1890s, most of the other railroads will be done. And so now our economy is connected. You now have a list. It was a paper list, and I want us to look at the impact of the railroad. This list, I didn't want you to write it down, so I printed it out. I want us to go through this list, and I want us to see, is this positive or is this negative? So the first one, it carried the mail for the postal service and military traffic. Positive. Railroad towns became cities. Okay, so this is why Waxahachie became a major city. Let's look at the second part of this. Bypass towns became ghost towns. So this is why Maypearl, you realize Maypearl doesn't have a stop for the railroad, right? Maypearl became a small city. Ennis has a stop. Corsicana has a stop. This is why they became big cities. Okay? It welded the West Coast more firmly to the Union. Positive or negative? Positive. Facilitated a flourishing trade with Asia. Positive. Penetrated the desert. Positive. Paved the way for phenomenal growth of the West. Physically united a sprawling nation. Positive. Spurred the steel industry. Positive. Created an enormous market for American raw materials and manufactured goods. Positive. Spurred domestic and foreign investment. Spurred post-Civil War industrialization. Stimulated the mining and agriculture industry. Positive. Spurred the growth of cities and urbanization. Positive. Stimulated immigration. Positive unless you're what? Nativist. It's a negative. Okay. Okay. Contributed to the near extinction of the buffalo. Okay. You have to understand why this happened. First I have to think about my dog before I tell you about the buffalo. So I think about outside right now, like yesterday. It was cold, right? And most animals, do they want to go into the shade at this time of the year, or do they want to go into the sun? They go sunbathe, right? So they could get warm. So you have to understand buffalo, we're up north, right? And they're going to want to get in the sun, right? But if there's a railroad and there's metal, doesn't the metal get hot? And so where are the buffalo going to go nuzzle? Oh, some of y'all got images, I'm sorry. But now, okay, so now y'all are seeing the issue with the choo-choos going by, right?
But they get some good highs.
Okay, okay, so this is why, okay, so now y'all like, okay, the buffalo are gonna go nuzzle in the little rail lines, and this is gonna lead to the choo-choos derailing, right? If we're getting into all our technical terms. But, and so now if the choo-choo derails, what happens to the value of that stuff, the cargo? And so this is why railroad companies, which we're going to see when I get to the West Notes on Friday, they would hire buffalo killers like Buffalo Bill Cody to go out there and kill by thousands buffalo. But if the buffalo are killed, does this have a ramification on the Indians? Right? And we're going to look at that. How does us industrializing affect going out west and affect our Native Americans? So this is all going to tie together. But y'all said this was a negative for who? The Indians, but this is a positive for the business, right? Because we could carry out stuff. Okay, sorry for those images that were very graphic that you put in your head. Okay, the growth of the cattle industry, positive. Destruction of the prairie, negative. Destruction of the pine forest, growth of the lumber industry, standardized time zones, makers of millionaires, corruption, negative. Extended segregation, negative. What case had to do this? It was a case that we talked about before break. Plessy versus Ferguson. Encourage travel, positive. Change political campaigning, because the politicians now have to go actually and talk to their constituents, positive. Sharing of ideas, improve quality of life. Overall, on this list, what impact did the railroad have? Positive. Okay, good thing we didn't have to write it down. There was a couple of negatives, right? But overall, all new technology are going to have positive ramifications. Yes. Everybody just found out. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to talk about now. It happened to me yesterday. I realized the tag was in the front. And, okay. So I want us to look at this image, and I want you to tell me who's at the center of this image. A farmer. How does he feel about himself? He's pretty confident. He's like, I feed you all, from the politician to the banker to the minister to the soldier. But you have to realize that farmers are going to be lonely at this time. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. The farmers only is not created at this time. Okay. But what is developed at this time is a thing called the Grange. Okay. And what you have is a little spot to write about the development of the Grange. The Grange was created as a social network for farmers. Yeah, but it's not like that. It is not for them to be hooking up with people, okay? It's not farmers only. But what it is basically a social network, so they could come together and have contests. They could have, they could share practices. And so eventually the Grange, these people who come to the Grange will start, and there's a lot of different Grange societies and local municipalities. And they're going to start talking about their problems, and they're going to realize their biggest problem is the railroad. For example, many Eastern producers who are businesses paid 95 cents per ton that they put on the railroad. However, a farmer had to pay $3.20. Is that fair? We're also going to see farmers were charged more for a short haul. So let me explain a short haul versus a long haul. I'm going to explain it with airline tickets. Which airline ticket do you think is going to be cheaper? A ticket from Dallas to Austin or a ticket from Dallas to New York? That would be cheaper. That's the short haul, right? And the long haul, Dallas to New York, should be more expensive. But at this time, the railroads were giving a cheaper rate for the long haul. Is that fair? And so this is what the farmers were looking at, that is not fair. They're also saying that they're charged higher rates. They're being discriminated to be able to hold their grain in the grain elevators. So the farmers start to unite against the railroad, saying that the railroad is not treating them fairly, but the railroad favors who? Business. And so this is what's going to lead to Granger laws. I know the next thing we have to write is the Wabash case. So let me explain what Granger laws are. Many of these farmers are able to get political positions. And they go into their state legislators saying, we need to regulate the railroad. So look at this guy right here. Who do you think he is? Farmer, right? Is he very happy with the railroad? No, and I want you to look at this railroad. Where does it snake itself around? The Capitol, because we know at this time, does big business control our government? And so now these Granger laws are including things that they can't put price caps, they have to publish their shipping rates, they also have to publish the grain storage facility rates. This railroad, do you think they're happy with these Granger laws? These Granger laws thus go to the Supreme Court. And in the Wabash case, this is what you have to write for the Wabash case. The Granger laws regulating the railroad are declared unconstitutional. Are the farmers happy? No, because they were trying to regulate the railroad to be fair to them because the railroad was only beneficial to what group of people? The business. And so the court will eventually rule, yes, Granger laws, y'all were trying to regulate the railroad, but the state really doesn't have that authority. It is only Congress who has that authority. So now what are they hoping for? Get people in Congress. But what do we know about people in Congress from when we saw that money bag image? They're corrupt because they're controlled by who? Big business. So who's going to win with Congress? Okay, but we are going to see Congress come out with a rule called the Interstate Commerce Act. And I think you have the next thing written all out about the Interstate Commerce Act. The Interstate Commerce Act is going to be created. And this act is going to be an attempt to help farmers. It prohibited. What does it mean to prohibit? To ban, right? It banned rebates. Y'all remember what rebates were? It discounted the rate. It bans pools. Y'all remember what pools were? Where you divide up the territory to set price what? High. It required railroads to publish their rates. So could the railroads favor business? It outlawed unfair discrimination. Who was being discriminated by the railroads? The farmer. It outlawed unfair rates for the long haul and short haul. Wait, is this what everything the farmers wanted? And lastly, it created a commission called the Interstate Commerce Commission. Wow, the government is creating rules. But do you think they're going to enforce them? Because the government is in the hands of who? Business. So yes, a rule is created, and this rule will benefit us later, but there is a reason why we need to celebrate this rule, because there's the last question, the importance of this act. We know this act is not going to be enforced at this time, but this is the first attempt of the federal government to regulate business. Even though they're not going to use it at this time, you see the government right there trying to regulate, it will be used later. And this will eventually be given teeth by another act in the progressive era. So I'm going to let you copy this down, and then we're going to move on to labor unions.